not the enormity of an event that causes trauma, it's your physiological reaction. For example, David and John witnessed a violent pub fight in which 2 people died. David froze in absolute terror. He felt disconnected from his body, he couldn't move and he couldn't respond. He was actually immobilised for more than 3 hours and he was eventually taken home by a kindly police officer. Once at home, he sat alone staring at the wall until the early hours of the morning. Now, John also witnessed the violent attack, but his nervous system reacted in a very different way. He felt a sudden surge of adrenaline and his muscles tensed, primed for action. He ran to the back of the pub and managed to escape via the fire exit. When at home, he spent the evening talking to his wife about the event. David and John witnessed exactly the same events, but their nervous systems reacted very differently. David developed PTSD and John didn't. But why? There are constant movements within your inner landscape: salivation, breathing, heart rate, muscle tension, perspiration, and so forth. Now, they are a product of the harmony between the 2 branches of your autonomic nervous system: the sympathetic, which acts as the body's accelerator, and the parasympathetic, which is your body's brake. The sympathetic branch of your nervous system is responsible for the fight or flight response. It's like the accelerator of a car. So when John ran out of the pub, it was his fight or flight response that had primed him for action. His amygdala, his brain's alarm bell, sent a distress signal to his hypothalamus, which activated his sympathetic nervous system. His adrenal glands responded by pumping adrenaline into his bloodstream, which caused his heart to beat faster, pushing blood to his muscles and other vital organs. The parasympathetic branch of the autonomic nervous system is responsible for rest and digest and social engagement. Think of it like the brake pedal of a car. It puts a brake on arousal by slowing down your heart rate, relaxing muscles, and returning your breathing to normal. There's actually a very simple way you can experience these 2 systems for yourself. If you take a deep breath in, you activate the sympathetic nervous system. When you exhale, you activate your parasympathetic nervous system. Now, John's sympathetic nervous system enabled him to get away from the dangerous situation, but it was the kind face, soothing tones and physical contact from his wife that brought him to a sense of calm and safety. John received the message, "You're safe with me," which reset his physiology by activating his parasympathetic nervous system. Basically, John's parasympathetic system opened and then stayed open because he felt safe in his wife's presence. So the social engagement with his wife helped John's nervous system reset after the trauma. Now, David responded in a very different way. He froze. His nervous system shut down and expended as little energy as possible. This is called the freeze response, and it's the ultimate emergency system. Now, during the freeze response, the parasympathetic system comes in so strongly that it overwhelms the sympathetic arousal and sends the person into a state of freeze. This can be a full collapse, dissociation, or a partial freeze, such as an inability to think clearly. The freeze response may be momentary, such as a deer in the headlights, but in humans, the freeze response can continue indefinitely. Peter Levine, trauma expert and the creator of Somatic experiencing, maintains that when in the freeze state, your energy is tightly activated and doesn't discharge, so your nervous system concludes that you're still in danger and the symptoms of trauma are born. Unfortunately, unless you release the trauma from your body and nervous system, you remain stuck in a traumatised state. Now, Peter Levine often uses a prop to demonstrate what's going on in the body during trauma. This prop is a slinky, and I have one with me today. So the slinky represents your energy and arousal level. If you're walking around day to day, this would demonstrate your energy and arousal level. If you're running, it's more like this. And if you're in fight or flight mode, then your energy is really aroused. But when you're overwhelmed, your energy can become locked down in your nervous system, and we have the freeze response. Now, when this energy doesn't get released, it leads to a whole host of trauma symptoms, such as flashbacks, nightmares, feelings of being unsafe, pain and PTSD. So by using this slinky, we can see that John mobilised his energy by running away, and this was then soothed by talking to his wife, the social engagement system. But David's energy was locked down, stuck and frozen in time, hence his PTSD diagnosis. So according to Levine, David experienced PTSD due to an incomplete biological process that got locked in his body and nervous system. So when completing trauma work with David, we need to discharge this energy gradually via the process of titration. So the key is to get a little bit of discharge at a time, so a little bit of energy is released, and again, and so forth. So little by little his nervous system resets. But how do you release trauma from the body? Peter Levine suggests a bottom-up approach to trauma work, which refers to the type of therapy which starts its work at the base of the brain, the limbic system. This is the part of the brain that's responsible for the fight, flight or freeze response. So the therapist would first facilitate a sense of safety and then use body-based interventions with the aim of releasing trauma's impact on the body. Now, to activate this bottom-up process, you can use a range of activities such as exercise, rhythmic movement, diaphragmatic breathing, yoga, EMDR and much more. Bottom-up approaches focus on body sensations, movement impulses and emotions. Basically, these interventions allow you to release the traumatic event from your body and nervous system, so you can then relearn how to inhabit your body. By contrast, the most prevalent approaches to psychotherapy today are top-down approaches such as CBT. A top-down approach involves a therapist working directly with the thinking part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex. The aim of a top-down approach is to change thinking. So interventions such as challenging thought, Socratic questioning and thought records are all top-down interventions. But when someone is stuck in the freeze response, they can't process verbal communication well. That's because their prefrontal cortex, the logical, analytical, thinking part of the brain, is offline. Bessel Van Der Kolk, the author of The Body Keeps the Score, says, "You cannot do psychotherapy or psychoeducation when people are frozen, because when you're frozen, nothing can come into your brain until the frozenness is stopped." This is why, when helping someone come out of the freeze response, relying on words alone often falls short. Because freeze paralyses the body, you're better off treating freeze with somatic or bottom-up approaches. Now, I've already given examples of bottom-up approaches such as diaphragmatic breathing and yoga, but equally important is the activation of the social engagement system. According to polyvagal theory, we all communicate with each other via our social engagement system, facial expression, tone of voice, and body language. So by communicating cues of safety, we can enable someone to stabilise in our presence and eventually thaw. Remember, talking to his wife was one of the key things that helped John move out of the fight or flight response. Sadly, David had nobody to talk to, which only served to embed the freeze response. Now, to find out how the social engagement system can help regulate your nervous system and move you out of the freeze response, please view my video on polyvagal theory, which is on the screen now. And I look forward to seeing you soon.